Hi reading buddies, this is Maria, the Scary Story Lady. I have another scary tale for you from J.B. Stamper's Night Fright collection. This story is called Trick or Treat. We always go out trick-or-treating together. Me, my friend Jordan, Jordan's little sister, Tessie, and Ruby, my next-door neighbor. There is no other day of the year that the four of us hang out together. But every Halloween, we meet at the corner by my house just when the sun is starting to sink in the sky. Over the years, we've gotten to know who is the bravest, the fastest, and the greediest. Ruby is always the greediest by far. She can never get enough treats, so I guess you could really blame her for what happened. This past year, I dressed up in a vampire costume that included fangs and fake blood. Jordan was a pirate, and Tessie was a little black cat. Ruby had on her old witch's costume, which was getting a little worn out. The peak of her black hat was bent over at the top, and her black witch's wig was looking really weird. We ran up and down the streets ringing doorbells, screaming, "Trick or treat!" and stuffing candy and sweets into our bags. By the time we had covered most of the neighborhood, it was dark, and we were at the farthest point away from our houses. I wanted to go home, Tessie started to whine. She always got tired first, but this year she had lasted longer than usual. "I guess we've about covered every place anyway," Jordan said. He looked worried that Tessie was going to make a fuss. Ruby was poking around in her treat bag, looking for her favorite kind of candy bar. "We're not stopping yet," she said. "I've got less candy than I did last year. Every year we should get more than the last. That's my rule." Ruby talked in a way that made it hard to argue with her. We all started to walk in the opposite direction from home, not sure where we were going. "We don't know this neighborhood," Jordan said, after we'd gone about half a block. "Anyways, that old witch's house is around here." I heard Tessie whimper a little. I could tell she was starting to get scared of the dark. I wasn't feeling too comfortable myself in the strange neighborhood. "Look, there it is!" Ruby stopped suddenly and pointed her finger toward a house that was set far back from the sidewalk. We could see candles flickering in the two front windows, but bushes and trees hid most of the house. I felt Tessie move closer between me and Jordan. "Does a witch really live here?" she asked. "Of course she's not really a witch," Jordan said. "Everybody just calls her that." "Listen, Ruby," I said, looking around at the deserted sidewalk. "Let's just go on home. There aren't any other kids trick-or-treating on this block. You can have some of my candy if you haven't got enough for yourself." "No, I want to go up to this house," Ruby insisted. "I'm not afraid of the old lady who lives here." Ruby pushed open the low iron gate that separated the yard from the sidewalk and started to walk up the brick path that led to the house. I looked at Jordan and shrugged my shoulders. It was too late to talk Ruby out of doing it, and we'd never live it down if we were too scared to go up there with her. "Come on, Tessie," I said, taking her hand. "There's nothing to be scared about." Tessie sniffled a little bit, but followed us as we walked behind Ruby to the house. "I wonder what she'll look like," Jordan whispered. "Long yellow teeth," Ruby whispered back. "A big hooked nose, black hair down her back." Tessie really started to cry then. Jordan had to pick her up and carry her the rest of the way to the porch. We stood on the porch in front of the door and waited after Ruby knocked. Nobody came. Ruby knocked again. The candles were still flickering in the windows, but the rest of the house was dark. Then all of a sudden a light went on inside, and the door opened wide. We were blinded by the light for a few seconds. Then we saw the old woman standing in the doorway. She had her gray hair put up in a neat bun. Her eyes were blue, her nose was normal, and her smile was kind and inviting. Best of all was the tray of candy, cookies, and other goodies that she held in her hands. "Trick or treat," we all said, sort of nervously. Ruby reached her hand out to grab some of the candy off the tray, but the woman stepped back into the room before Ruby could take any. "Come in," the woman said in a soft, sweet voice. "So few children knock on my door anymore, and I just love to welcome trick-or-treaters into my house. Let me see your costumes." I followed Ruby and Jordan and Tessie into the house, even though my mother had given me a strict lecture never to go inside anyone's house on Halloween. But I felt silly to worry about this old lady. She couldn't be a witch, never in a million years. She looked like the nicest grandmother in the world. "Now let's see. You're a pirate," the woman said, looking at each of our costumes, "and you're a cat, you're a vampire, and you," she paused as she looked at Ruby, "you're a witch." I thought I heard her voice get a little harder and colder when she said the last word, but before I could think about it, she was offering us the tray of candy and goodies. Ruby took 2 pieces of candy and a little bag of cookies and stuffed them into her bag. We all helped ourselves, and the woman just smiled and offered us more. Ruby picked up a piece of licorice and started to bite off the end. "No, no," the woman said sharply. "Don't eat anything in the house. Wait until you reach the sidewalk outside the gate." Ruby lowered the licorice from her mouth and stared at it hungrily. "But take the rest of the candy," the woman said with a smile. "Put it in your bags. I'm sure you'll be my last trick-or-treaters of the night." So we took it all, stuffing our bags with every shape and size of candy until they were heavy. "Happy Halloween, dearies," the old woman said as we filed out the door. "And remember, don't eat anything until you go through the gate." Ruby was walking first down the brick path, and she was still carrying the piece of licorice. I saw the greedy look in her eyes as she stared at it. We were still on the path when she put it up to her mouth. "Ruby, don't eat it," I said. Ruby wouldn't listen. She put the licorice in her mouth. Suddenly she started to scream. She stood there in the moonlight screaming and screaming. The rest of us saw the licorice twist and turn in her hand. Then Ruby threw it down on the ground. We watched in horror as a snake raised its head and hissed at Ruby. Then it slithered off into the night. Finally, Ruby stopped screaming, only to start again with a bag of candy in her other hand started to twist and turn. When she dropped it, it hit the brick path with a funny, squishy sound. We all jumped back as the bag flopped away into the bushes. "Drop your bags!" I screamed to everyone as I felt mine begin to squirm in my hands. We all threw the bags into the grass and bushes and watched as they wiggled and squirmed away. Ruby was the first one through the gate. We all ran after her down the sidewalk. We ran and ran, but we couldn't escape from the witch's evil cackling laugh. It followed us all the way home. Do you eat your candy on Halloween night before you get home? Well, maybe next time you'll remember Ruby in this story. Good night, and see you next time on Night Frights. Bye-bye.